Thank you guys for coming on today. So, Dr. Marbut, why fentanyl? Why this documentary?
There's nothing that's as much an existential threat to our country right now as fentanyl. More people have died in the last 3.5, 4 years on fentanyl than all the American men and women service in the last 100 years of war. So think about that. World War II, Afghanistan, Iraq, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, global war on terror. Add them all up. More Americans have died because of fentanyl than our servicemen at war.
58,000 plus died in 15 years in Vietnam, and 100,000 died from fentanyl last year.
You know, I was watching a couple of interviews you guys were giving about this, and you were talking about, our population compared to the world, but our consumption and the death is so, we have a consumption problem as much as anything else.
Well, you have to address it from the supply side and the demand side. Yeah. We have to work with the Chinese government, the Mexican government, the Canadian government. There's almost as much coming in over the Canadian border as there is over the Mexican border. So we have to work on the supply side with all three of those countries, but we have to work on the demand side. We have 4% of the world's population, 4.7 or something. Yeah. 38% of the global consumption of fentanyl and 66% of the global deaths from fentanyl with 4% of the population.
Which is, it is frightening. And the trailer, and for me, it's important. My mother was an alcoholic. My dad died he had a heart attack, but it was like his fifth of drug overdose. And this was back before fentanyl was even long before it was a thing. And I look at this and I understand addiction is massive. You guys had the homeless documentary with the chaos of homelessness, like Sacramento. You talk about the 7 miles of homeless. I lived in Sacramento and in California at times. You're just like, my goodness, we've got a lot of issues here and a lot of it's tied together. Is it mental illness or is it drugs or is it both? We've got a huge problem and we need to figure this thing out because it is a true threat. And because it's people that are nameless, faceless, and we stick them somewhere and you hope you don't see them, it's tough to get, because that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's son, somebody's husband and wife.
And think about 1950, there were 500,000 government-funded mental health beds in America. 1950, our country's twice as big now. And we have less than 30,000 government-funded mental health beds in America, and almost all those are forensic beds. And so where did the untreated mental illness go in America? It's gone to the emergency rooms, it's gone to the jail, it's gone to the streets. And that's why a lot of people have a misconception, especially on my side of the table. I'm on the right side, Billy's on the left. But on the right side, there are a lot of people say this is substance use driven. It's really untreated mental illness and you're self-medicating because there's no,
and then it gets
no
much worse with this stuff because it eats your brain.
And fentanyl's just changed this.
Well, when you ask
totally
them, fentanyl and COVID have homelessness went from 4,000 to 17,000 in Sacramento, went from 54,000 to 76,000 in LA County. And now you have sort of the compassionate component that's always been there saying, we have to help these people in some way.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, because the numbers have gotten so bad because of fentanyl and COVID, and it doesn't discriminate. The woman who founded YouTube is a billionaire. Her son overdosed at Berkeley a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Nobody cares. Like black, white, gay, straight, Republican, Democrat,
rich, poor,
it doesn't matter.
It does not discriminate. So it's getting more and more people's attention for that reason, but it's also getting their attention because it's now not the people that you sweep under the carpet that you don't see every day. It's now when when I explain to people what it might take, I'm not an expert on this, but I've learned a lot about it over the years. And when I explain the type of care that's required, the type of care that his facility in San Antonio Haven for Hope is doing for the people there at a 70% plus success rate, comprehensive wraparound type of care, mental health, addiction treatment, job training, job placement, livable wages, affordable housing, all of that stuff that gets 70% of them back on their feet, self-sufficient, independent, requiring no more services. They're like, oh, that sounds awfully expensive. And I'm like, well, it's costing you more right now to not do enough because there's a 911 call. And when we were in Spokane, there was a 911 call for the same person 6 times in one day.
Yeah.
So then you deploy the fire department, the police department, the sheriff, the paramedics. Then they go to the emergency room. Then they're admitted. Then they go into the court system. Then they're incarcerated. Then you go downtown. It's Small Business Administration, Department of Commerce, Department of Tourism, property values dropping. So it's affecting. You have a compassionate component to it, and you have a quality of life and economic argument to be made as well.
Absolutely. Talking to Billy Baldwin and Dr. Marbut, they've got the new documentary. It's a must-see. It's called Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. You talk about like, this didn't start out of nowhere, especially with fentanyl. And a lot of it started because we had a huge opioid crisis and people were hunting and craving more. And that has been a disaster. And it's led to fentanyl cheap, easy, and deadly.
There's a direct tie from the Purdue Pharma crisis.
Of course, yeah.
14 years ago. This is really recent, just 14 years ago. And when all the lawsuits happened, the docs stopped prescribing, the pharmacy stopped giving it out, the hospitals stopped using it. What happened was the Mexican cartel said, we already have a supply chain in with meth. We're already bringing in another product. So they already had the supply chain built, and they worked with the Chinese, and immediately, like within months, were able to backfill that supply. And remember, we had millions of people on prescriptions with Oxycontin type synthetic opioids, hundreds of thousands addicted. And so the cartels, they're an insidious group of people, but they're incredible entrepreneurs. And they just said, we're already there. We can backfill this and put it in. And that's why it ramped up so fast.
And the biker gangs with the super labs up in Canada are also, I don't know what the numbers are. What are they?
Yeah,
what do you think? It's not 50-50, but it's getting close,
It's
right?
getting real close now.
Yeah.
So,
and that border is porous from, what do you say, from Blaine to Maine?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the longest land border in the world between two countries. And we have our border patrol that's literally in kayaks, on horseback, on ATVs, on motocross bikes, because the terrain is so rugged. And there's so many different places where you can come across the border.
And that's just the northern border. We're not even talking sort of the western frontier of Canada with Alaska.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people forget Canada and U.S. have the longest land border in the world between any two countries.
And it's porous. You got horseback, you got nothing. There's so much out there. And now with the advent of technology, drones, these things, it's crazy. I was sitting there and I was watching one of your interviews and you guys were talking about the fact that you were out there and you're watching somebody get Narcan. It's crazy to think, I'm 54. I know I look great, but still, the reality of me thinking that libraries would be saving more people than probably giving out books in certain areas is just mind blowing.
And right now, I mean, how we've got our systems all messed up, that jails are providing most of the psychiatric services in America. I mean, and we know that's not working, yet that's where they go because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And we had a situation where we were in Seattle and we were doing a tour, and within like 80 seconds, so we walked out, go down, and there's a gentleman on the ground, a guy named Blessing. And it ended up 4 firefighters came, then 2 EMS plus a EMS driver. We had 2 county sheriffs. We had 2 PDs. We had 3 local ambassadors plus a couple other nonprofits. So there's almost 20 people working on this gentleman, and he's down. And he is just gone, and they Narcan him, bring him back. And in my mind, that gentleman needs to go and get help. And he was refusing service, and he turned to the EMTs and says, "Get off me. Don't lay a hand on me."
Is there a component, you guys, you talk about the right and the left here in this situation. There's a component of compassion, and places like California is a perfect example where somewhere along the line, they decided that, it's a lifestyle choice. And it's a compassion, and we're just letting them be them. That it's not compassion to let somebody mentally.
Well, they talk about it being their freedom, and they are free to get high. They are free to overdose. They aren't free to have that happen and have us pay for it.
Yeah.
That is not freedom to us. And that sounds very sort of right of center, but I'm saying,
man, I'm not going to tell anybody. Don't worry.
No, it's okay.
It's true.
I'm on the record saying it because if they should have I mean, you could argue, since back with Dr. Kevorkian, about, choosing to die. I don't want to stray off too
But it's
much,
a different kind of choosing to die. You may have been sick and
But
dying.
when it's affecting tourism, commerce, property values, when you're affecting that's why we have a beautiful opportunity now, because there was the compassionate side that was sort of more left-leaning. The right hates when I say that. It makes it sound like they're lacking in compassion. But then I've done this before with the National Endowment for the Arts. I used to say you have to be bilingual. When I would go testify in the House of the Senate, or when I would go lobby and with Denny Hastert or Orrin Hatch, I was speaking one language as opposed to what I was talking to when I was speaking with Ted Kennedy. When I was speaking to the left, there's basically would say the compassion component about why these people need us to help them to sort of restore their dignity. And I'm not, again, a child becomes homeless. Is it their fault?
No.
Someone's PTSD from serving in combat, is it their fault?
No,
someone's a victim of domestic violence and they're lost in the street, is it their fault?
No.
Someone ages out of foster care and they don't have the tools, foster care didn't provide them, is it their fault? Then they say, well, what about the ones that choose to? They're doing drugs, they don't want to. I go, they don't have access to health care like we do. We go see a doctor, we see a psychologist, we see a psychiatrist. We get medication to deal with anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, PTSD. They don't have access to that, so they're self-medicating on the street with alcohol and with fentanyl. And I just think we have a wonderful opportunity now because I'm becoming even more bilingual. When I speak to the left, I continue to talk about the compassion component and where you have gone wrong, where you were well-intended and where your policies, we now know 15 years later, low bar, no bar, it hasn't worked. And when you talk to the right about how we're going to fund it, like, that sounds awfully expensive. I said, you're paying more right now to not do enough. And I have done conservatorships against family members. And one of the people involved with this documentary is in policy. Her husband's the retired police chief. And she's saying, when I get a 911 call and I have a bridge jumper, we don't take them down off the bridge and let them go home.
Yeah.
We take them.
Yeah.
We take them. The definition of a conservatorship is, are they a threat to themselves or others, or have they harmed themselves or others? Blessing that day clearly was a threat to himself. He flatlined, and a threat to others because he's dying on the streets. And he clearly harmed himself because if we didn't Narcan him, he would have been dead. And he hadn't yet harmed anyone else. When I had to do a conservatorship over a family member, everything was filed in the courts. And it was a ticking bomb. We had to wait for a year and a half before he got physical with somebody. Then we were able to take his rights, get him the medication. He's been living by himself in New Jersey for 30 years, totally self-sufficient, totally independent. I'm saying this is pretty radical. Maybe we should let the decision of the firefighters and the paramedics and the sheriffs and the police to say, let's take him, let's detox him. And when he's in a more sober, clear-headed space, to say, I'd rather be out on the streets. I don't want your help. I don't know how long that would take. I don't know if it's not a 72-hour. It's not a 72-hour lockdown. It's like a week to 10 days.
You know, it's interesting. And one of the things you talk about, that compassionate side. I mean, we've seen, with Newsom and the amount of money, but with no accountability. And see, that's the big thing. The no accountability. Like, here's all this money for homelessness. Here's all this money for stuff. And we're not asking for results. And the results are none.
I think you got to have a common sense middle. And there's a theme. Blly and I came across a social worker, I think, up in Seattle, who sort of we're having this conversation. And he goes, compassion without accountability is enablement.
Yes.
And I was like, that is it. I mean, that is exactly our problem.
Strings attached. But what people have to understand is when they go downtown in San Francisco and Seattle and Portland and they have these drug centers, that was not a left-leaning policy. That was the policy of the police department because they didn't want to have to spread their resources out all across the city. So they would give you the paraphernalia, not the drugs, but the paraphernalia to do the drugs, and a nurse that would be there to make sure that you didn't die with Narcan available, so that their resources weren't spread in 20 different locations. They were in one or two in Seattle, Spokane, Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco. That was a policing practice.
In a public policy level, when I've worked in the White House, to me, the last 10 to 15 years, and the right by not funding some things and the left by going into the harm reduction, well-intended but not worked, what we've had is we're making it so easy to get high now and so hard to get treatment. We got to flip it on its head. We got to make it easy to get treatment and hard to get high.
Absolutely. Can you guys stick around for one more segment?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Bly Baldwin, Dr. Marbut's in here talking about the new movie Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. They're going to join us. Again, we're going to talk more about this because it needs to be talked about. This is the Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.
Super Talk 99.7 WGN.
Here's what we're talking about with you. 3 deaths in Tennessee reported after last night's severe weather. Also, stocks battered at the start of trading by President Trump's announcement of worldwide tariffs.
Start streaming now
by downloading the Super Talk 99.7 WTN app.
Prize Picks. You want to win? Of course you do. It's fantasy. It's like the easiest thing to do. It's above and below. It's not, you're not picking spreads or any of that crazy stuff. It's easy. Like sports, say for baseball, like Ohtani. You think Ohtani's going to have, I don't know, a home run last night was pretty awesome. Check that out. Above or below, one hit. You can go across sports and maybe say, do you think Ovechkin's going to score a goal above or below? That's how you win. 1,000 times your money. And the minute you use my code, Chad, when you download the Prize Picks app, guess what? Boom, $5, you play, you get $50, win or lose, right off the bat, put right into your account. So try Prize Picks. You're going to love it. You can go, like I said, so easy to do. And it's not about picking anything other than above or below. Everything from balls and strikes in the first inning to hits to runs to how many points somebody's going to score in a basketball game or how many shots somebody's going to hit in a hockey game. Pick your favorite players. It's fantasy done right. Prize Picks. Download the app today. Go check it out. Prize Picks. Use my code, Chad. Get a $50 bonus when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks.
To reverse those tariffs on Canada. We'll have that story as well. That's all coming up at 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We're talking about a very serious subject. There's a movie out right now. It is called Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. Dr. Marbut's here. And Billy Baldwin, you voice it in this. What made you want to get into to talk about something like this?
Well, of course, the subject matter, it's just been, I've never seen... Between COVID and fentanyl, I've never seen something affect our society and affect our economy and the psyche of America faster than fentanyl and COVID did. It's just exacerbated and compounded a problem that was already there. We have a fentanyl drug problem, we have a homelessness problem, but we really have a severe mental health crisis, and we have to address that in a very meaningful way.
Doctor, you do this. I mean, you see this. You're on the right side of the aisle. You talk about it, and again, this isn't politics. This is just life. What have you seen over the last? We were talking before this. Like my buddy lived in Portugal for a long time. He came over. We were up in San Francisco. He's like, man, we don't have any of this. They decriminalized it, and they made it so though you don't do it on the streets. You have to go through partial treatment as you get any of these drugs. And if you're caught with the drugs out, you pay the price for it. Somehow that went away, and it's not the same.
Yeah, and a lot of people have, go to Amsterdam and say, oh, they legalized. They actually haven't. It's actually a very controlled process. Now, low-end stuff you can do at the coffee shop, but if you're talking about something like fentanyl or meth, you have to be in a treatment program. You have to have accountability. It's compassion with accountability together. But and there's tendency on my side of the aisle say, let's don't fund it. It's their choice. We're already spending so much money in this, in our emergency response system, our 911, our jails, our medical centers, our ERs. We're already spending the money. So why not spend the money better on the right? And on the left really needs to allow for compassion with accountability. We have to have some strings with the treatment.
Yeah, I think lowering it to a misdemeanor was a mistake. I think it should be a felony. In the old days, when my father was a kid in the 40s and 50s, judges would say, you're in trouble. You're either going to prison or you're going to go to the army. They'll straighten your butt out. And a lot of people, the right candidates for that, you don't just throw anybody in the military, but the people that could be safe. And I think that these misdemeanor drug issues should be felonies, and then they should be given an option. Do you want to go do time in prison, or do you want to go to rehab for 6 months and have a chance to turn your life around? And that would be a pilot program that I think would be worth experimenting with.
Absolutely. One of the things, though, and I've got young kids. I've got, 16-year-old, a couple 14-year-olds, and a 6-year-old. One of the things that scares me, and I talked to Eric Bowling about this a few years ago, it's the one pill can kill. These kids nowadays, fentanyl is as frightening as it gets, and they have no idea what they're taking. They're thinking they're getting an Adderall or a Ritalin, and the next thing you know, their life is over and done with, and that is terrifying.
It is. The fastest growing death rate of children 0 to 4 is fentanyl. That's just mind-boggling to me, how we got here.
And the number one cause of death between 18 and 45, more than cancer and heart disease, is fentanyl right now.
And it's because 2 to 3 grains salt equivalent of fentanyl will kill one person. 1 rice grain will kill 15. We've never seen something on the street this potent.
A sugar packet can kill 500 people?
Yeah.
A packet of sugar, if it was fentanyl, would kill 500 people.
I remember watching a documentary, kind of like, Seattle's burning or whatever that documentary was. But it was in San Francisco, and these guys are looking for some drugs, and this druggie goes, "Give me your $20, I'll go get you drugs," because they were going to buy it from another guy. and he went and got them drugs. He says, there's no fentanyl in this. If you guys would have smoked that, both of you guys would have been dead immediately. And it is terrifying because it is this isn't your mom and dad's kind of party.
In all the other illicit drugs on the street, I mean, all the way from weed to meth and trank and all these other things, the DEA is finding about 70% of it is now laced with fentanyl. Just cross-contamination, because the drug dealers one day are making fentanyl and the next day they're making meth and the next day they're making K2 spice. So they're not sitting there in a clean lab cleaning down the table. So the fentanyl dust is still there. And so this cross-contamination is becoming a huge problem. And a lot of the increasing deaths are not even being reported as fentanyl. They're being reported as another drug because it's cross-contamination.
In the documentary, there's a young girl talking about her friend who didn't do drugs at all, ever. And she went to a sorority party. She had a glass of champagne too much. She woke up the next day with like a hangover, asked her housemates, I have a splitting headache from a hangover. They just handed her a pill and said, take this, it'll take care of it. She thought it was extra strength Tylenol or something, or Advil, and it wound up being a street Oxycontin or something, a painkiller that was laced with fentanyl, and she took it and never woke up. 19 years old.
You know, somebody just asked, why fentanyl? Like, why is the fentanyl so easy? Why is it out there when, you know, you think about why is it put inside of all this? Why would anybody even think about taking it?
Well, and that's what the suppliers are having a problem. They've tried to dilute it down, and they're really working to dilute it because in the beginning, the first 3 or 4 years of market, people were one pill and down.
Yeah, you're killing your customers.
Yeah, it's not good business model, and so they have been trying to dilute it. But fentanyl is so powerful, so potent. We've now 100 times more powerful than morphine. So you got to have microscopic lab equipment to get it that precise. So now they're starting to dilute it with other things. And so, you know, in Philadelphia in particular, that sort of became the center of trank, which is 30% horse tranquilizer, 70% fentanyl. This is insane. This is like out of control. And now with the cross-contamination, some people are purposely lacing.
The dealers will give it away for free
to
get you hooked.
Yeah.
They'll walk around the streets of Vancouver and Seattle, Spokane, and they'll give it away for free. You take this once or twice, you're done, and then you're buying it. And it's not like the old days, $100 a gram. This is you get one of these pills for $2 or $3.
Yeah,
and people are doing it every 4, 5, 6 hours.
And part of it, in the beginning, the business model was margin. It was like $35 per pill. Now most pills around the country are running about 87 cents. So it's dropped. This is why the invention of the biker gangs in Canada coming in, they started to compete with the Mexican cartel. And so supply and demand.
Yeah.
So when they came in, it was no longer a sort of monopoly out of Mexico. So now you got stuff coming in, and you're starting to get local street gangs starting to make it themselves and starting to go online, get all the chemicals themselves and making it. So that's what's driven the price down. So this is the most potent drug ever on the street and one of the cheapest drugs ever on the street. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
People want to go see this. People want to check this out. How do they get access? Where do they go?
Well, we'll be streaming in the next couple months here, and Warner Brothers is our distributor, and they've been just a great partner of understanding the importance of getting this out.
And hopefully when everything's over, maybe we can get it on the theater and have a big thing here. That'd be great. We thank you guys coming in today, Billy Baldwin, Dr. Marbut. We appreciate that. And go check out when it comes out, Fentanyl, Death Incorporated. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.